Welcome back, everybody, to this week's episode of Bulletin Sports Talk. I'm your host, Brian Rathbone from the Bulletin. It's June 8th, and there are still a couple weeks left of the prep sports season, which is kind of crazy to think about that it's still, this late in the year and it's still going on. But today we are talking about the Bend Elks, and joining me today is the voice of the Elks, Noah Wolf, and we're going to talk about kind of where the team's at kind of at this point in the season, as players are, coming in and out of the team, just kind of how fluid of a situation it is. So it's kind of gives some nice insight into what the kind of early on stages of, a West Coast League baseball season is kind of like. So anyway, here's Noah. Joining me now is the voice of the Elks, Noah Wolf. Noah, how you doing today?
Doing great. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So, the Elks coming off their first, West Coast League series, didn't seem to go too well up in Ridgefield. What was what was the scene up there, and what kind of happened during those, that 3-game sweep?
I mean, it's always hard to judge a team by the first 3 games of any season. I mean, especially in the West Coast League where rosters are so fluid and you have guys joining the team and leaving the team. And, you never know until sort of the middle of the season, 2, 3, 4 series in, what your roster is really going to look like. And, chemistry changes throughout the season because you're bringing in all these guys from all over the country that have never played baseball together before. They don't know each other. So, it'll take them a while to loosen up, to get used to the West Coast, to get used to Bend. But yeah, I mean, in Ridgefield, the team, they showed some bright spots at certain points. But ultimately just the Ridgefield bats proved to be too much. They really poured it on, especially in the second and third games. And on one hand, I give credit to the Elks pitching staff because it really was the Raptors earning it. It wasn't the Elks walking a lot of guys, which happens all the time in West Coast League play. And it certainly plagued the Elks 2 years ago. But yeah, walks were not an issue. The Raptors bats, they were just all over the place.
Yeah, and you can kind of just see that in the score. I think it was double digits all 3 games.
Yeah, 5-1 game 1.
Okay,
and then,
5-1.
16-5 in game 2 and 13-0 in game 3. But yeah, and like I said, that was pretty much all Raptors hitting. And some defensive mishaps by the Elks as well contributed there, but mostly just some solid hitting by the Raptors.
Yeah, and you kind of alluded to this, it takes a couple of weeks for, the rosters to kind of fill out, at least at this point, it's a lot of the 10-day contracts, just kind of, filling in the rosters, as, the college baseball season literally like just ended a couple of weeks ago. This week, as of Monday, they're, Oregon State, which, there's several players from those teams that are, expected to be on the Elks. How long does it kind of take for, once a college baseball season ends, for, players to kind of filter into the summer league?
Yeah, so there's a few factors. Obviously, you have the college season ending, and for NCAA baseball teams, they can't join the Elks until their season is over. They also can't join the Elks until their school year is over. So for schools like Oregon and Oregon State, where they follow the quarter system, that end date isn't for in some cases a week or two still from now.
Mm-hmm.
I think Oregon State players are going to be eligible to join the Elks at the end of this week is the technical end date, but it varies school by school. But yeah, the Elks had 5 colleges competing in the NCAA regionals: Oregon, Oregon State, Nevada, UC Santa Barbara, and Grand Canyon University, and then one team competing in the NAIA World Series in Lewis Clark State up in Lewiston, Idaho. So they were still competing with their college team. And the other factor too is that you have some incoming freshmen, and they have to wait to graduate high school and go to prom and have their grad party and whatever before they can join the team. So there's a lot of factors as to why the Elks may not have the same guys all through the season. And toward the end of the year, some of the semester guys will have to leave early to go back to school and start fall ball again. But yeah, there's plenty of factors. And I know that the Elks had 12 players for one reason or another from this weekend's roster that won't be on the roster come tonight. And apparently something like 14 to 15 guys arriving either before today's game or later this week. So it's going to be a very fluid roster, a lot of changes. But I think the coaches are excited about the new guys coming in.
Is that pretty common, just to have just like a quick like roster flip like that, where it is just kind of 12 people are off the roster and 12 people are coming in like a span of a day?
I've got to say that's like that sort of hockey style line change is not something I've seen in the West Coast League before. It normally happens on more of a trickle in, trickle out sort of basis. But it's sort of what the Elks needed after a series that they'd like to forget, to get the guys that they signed to the roster rather than mostly a roster of 10-day contract players like they were playing in Ridgefield. So yeah, like I said, I think it's what the Elks needed. And I think the Elks are very happy to have the roster guys coming in, even though it is en masse and you essentially are starting fresh with pretty much a brand new roster.
It makes your job easier too. I mean, you have a week, you're learning all these players, and then boom, new players, new backgrounds. You got to fill the airwaves with.
Well, yeah. I mean, I thought that I had people's names learned, like going up and shaking their hands, and all of a sudden that 12 of them are gone, and I have to learn a whole new set of names, put names to faces. But yeah, I mean, it's interesting. You'll learn a lot about the players certainly before they arrive, but then as the season goes on, you get more stories and you understand how they interact with each other and the friendships that are going on and all that fun stuff. So it's a fun season, and yeah, it's good to get to know all the guys.
How long have you been broadcasting for the Elks?
This is my third season with the team. I was here in 2018 as the number 2 broadcaster, and then I was number 1 with a partner in 2019, and then I'm all solo this year.
Solo. So you just kind of just been carving out like your space to be the man.
Yeah, I mean, it's nice to have somebody to go back and forth with, and I'm missing that a little bit this year. But it seems sometimes that I'm having those conversations with myself. But that's how you have to do it. And, Mike Parker, for instance, for Oregon State and for Corvallis, he's solo all year, or certainly was when I was listening to him at the Fort Worth Regional. Vince Scully had a solo booth in Los Angeles. So it's part of the tradition of baseball and something I'm getting used to for sure.
Yeah, is it like challenging at all? Like, because like you said, you do kind of develop these relationships with players and kind of know their backgrounds and whatnot, and then one day they could be totally off the team, and in this case it's a total flip. How do you kind of manage that aspect of it?
Yeah, I mean, you just sort of roll with the punches. The roster is what the roster will be, and you have to realize that I don't have any control over that, and I take the team that's in front of me and do the best that I can.
Back to the Elks a little bit. The bats also were a little quiet up in Ridgefield. Was that just something where they were kind of just overpowered, or poor at bats? What did you kind of see from the offense of that series?
I think for the most part, the team that was in Ridgefield, the Raptors had most of their roster guys. That's most of the guys that were on the team are going to be with the team the rest of the year. They didn't have to have a lot of 10-day guys, which I seem to remember being the case with the Elks in 2019. I don't remember a lot of 10-day guys at the beginning of the year in 2019. It was more the end of the year where the Elks had to fill the roster that year. But so I think that factors into it. They have their roster guys. They have, 4-year schools, Big 12 experience, Pac-12 experience, whatever it may be. So yeah, I mean, the pitching was pretty high quality. A lot of guys throwing in the mid 90s, I would say. That the radar gun wasn't working in Ridgefield, so you'll just have to take my word for it that it was 90s ish up up in Ridgefield. But yeah, and it was the full roster guys competing against the sort of 10-day stringers that may not have they didn't find a full home for the summer for one reason or another, and so the Elks got them on a temporary basis, and the result is what the result was, right?
That's kind of interesting, just how the teams, like Ridgefield, they already have, they're close to their full roster. So how do you kind of like, I know like there's the playoffs and everything, with the West Coast League, and when I was in school in Corvallis, the Knights were always right up there competing for a title. How much does this like game planning, your roster to be like, all right, we want to make sure we don't have a bunch of like semester guys who are going to be leaving. How do you how's just kind of forming that rosters kind of play out throughout the year?
Yeah, I think a lot of it is the luck of the draw, honestly. You can sort of understand when guys might go back and when guys might arrive, but it varies from school to school. It varies player to player based on, I want to spend an extra week at home or whatever it may be between the end of the school year and the beginning of the summer league baseball season. So I am not privy to those internal discussions as to how to build the roster. The Knights, as you pointed out, seem to get it right every year. They win early, they win often, and they win deep in the playoffs. They're, I think, 4 in a row West Coast League champions now. So, yeah, I mean, they've got it figured out. Other than that, it seems like it's sort of, you get lucky at points. And baseball is often a game of luck and a game of inches, right? Where very small differences can end up being the deciding factor, whether that's close play at first base or whether that's how you build your roster. So like I said, the Knights seem to have it figured out, but there's not a ton of consistency in the West Coast League from year to year because you never know who is going to show up. And I don't just mean like which players are going to show up. I mean, which version of those players is going to show up. A guy can hit 400 for his NAIA school and not succeed in the West Coast League. And on the other hand, you can have a guy that's maybe hitting 200, 250 for a 2-year school in the NWAC, and then they come to the West Coast League and they just have a terrific, all-star caliber year. Baseball is a very unpredictable game in that sense.
Yeah, especially kind of in a league like this, it sounds like, where, like you said, it's very, very fluid with the rosters, and imagine that's kind of tough with coaching, and Elks have a first year coach, and Kyle Novak, who hasn't been head coach. I mean, he told me he's the only times he's been like the head coach or like the manager is when his community college that he's an assistant coach at gets tossed from the game and he has to take over. Have you talked with him at all, just kind of what the first couple games were like, and kind of what he's maybe learned in those that first series?
Yeah, I think he's definitely excited for the rest of the year. The coaching staff definitely has the right attitude, and they're all pretty sharp. Kyle, as you mentioned, he has that intensity and that drive and that passion. I think with summer ball, the prevailing feeling among certain coaches and certain players seems to be like, oh, what does it matter? It's just summer ball, right? And I don't think that thought has ever popped into Kyle's head. He is very intense. He wants to win. All the coaches, they want to win. That's their main goal. Obviously, they want the players to improve, but they want to win. And then you have Tyler Graham, the hitting coach, who is also a national champion at Oregon State, just like Kyle was. And Graham has proven to be sort of the swing doctor for the Elks.
Okay.
That's what I've heard from the players and the other coaches, is that he can look at your swing and understand exactly the problem with it and say, okay, so this is what you need to do mechanically to fix your swing. And it seems to be helping a lot of the guys, when they get that advice in batting practice. And then you've got Xander Klaus, the pitching coach, who's also a first-year coach for the Elks. All three of these guys brand new to the team. Klaus is coaching at Archbishop Murphy High School, as he just got hired as the head coach there. And he's got the right philosophy too. I talked to him about sort of his philosophy, and he's telling me that he wants he's right now calling the games. So,
Mhm.
if a pitcher's going to throw a fastball, curveball, whatever, that's coming from Klaus at the moment. But he says, I want the pitchers to know that they can shake off at any time. They can decide what pitch they want to throw if they don't like the call. And he says he gets more fired up when they shake him off and get a strikeout than if like he were to call a strikeout, because they are confident and they're learning that sort of thing. So Xander definitely has the right attitude and some good philosophy when it comes to the pitchers.
Yeah, and you would think, the coaches are learning about these players on the fly as well. So it's just like, what pitches do they like, in certain situations, what do they feel confident in? So I think that's a good sign that, the pitching coach isn't like upset that he thinks that his call was the way to go.
Exactly. Yeah. He's talked about some of those challenges, right? In absorbing all these guys brand new to the team. He's got a bunch of pitchers coming in this week, like I mentioned. And yeah, he gets that, the catchers and pitchers aren't going to know each other very well to begin. He's not going to know the pitchers all that well right off the bat. So it's going to be a learning process throughout the season. And, and that's the other thing that Xander told me, is that he is very excited to be learning from Tyler and Kyle and just putting himself in a room where he has people to learn from, because he's been a pitching coach for a while and he's done pitching lessons and things like that. But now this head coaching thing for him at his alma mater at Archbishop Murphy High School, that's a new thing. And so he's got to learn how to hit and how to teach hitting and how to teach fielding and things like that. And so I found it interesting. Joey Wong, another Oregon State national champion, is going to be joining the Elks when the Oregon State players do, I believe. And because he's coaching for Oregon State right now.
Yeah.
And when he gets here, he's going to take over at first base and as the first base coach, and Tyler Graham's going to be at third. But what I assumed was going to happen was that Kyle would coach third and Tyler would coach first. But instead, before Joey Wong got here, but instead it's Tyler at third and Xander, the pitching coach, at first base, which is not a normal role for a pitching coach. But he says, it's just part of the process of learning how to do that sort of thing.
Yeah. One interesting note, you mentioned the 3 Oregon State coaches, all of them have won national championships, but none of them were like on the same team.
Exactly.
Which is pretty cool.
Yeah. Graham won it in his final season as a Beaver in 2006. And then Wong won it in his first season as a Beaver in 2007. And then Kyle Novak as a redshirt senior in 2018 finally brought it home.
No, it's so it's pretty wild. So the opener against last Thursday. So I covered Kyle when he was at Oregon State when I was working for the paper there. When he was, I wasn't there for the national championship team, but the years before, and it's just crazy watching like him in a coaching role, like him out there, trading the lineup cards and all that. It's just like, man, I remember when he was just like this, because he was a transfer from junior college, and he was just he's just always in the dirt, jersey, just so much passion. And it's just like, man, it's just kind of cool to see him kind of grow into this role. And he's a little different, like mentally. He's in a little different mental space than he was when I was covering him, and it's just kind of cool to see that growth as well.
Definitely, and I like the youth on the Elks coaching staff. It's something that the past 2 Elks head coaches that I've worked with, they've been the older and wiser sort of head coaches, but I think the youth of these guys really brings a lot to the table. Tyler Graham played for the Elks when he was in college, and all these guys, if they know the grind of JUCO ball and summer ball and playing for a 4-year school and trying to make the College World Series and what have you. So they understand it, and it's a lot more real to them. They can relate to the players in that sense, and they can use that, fresh knowledge in a way that I think is unique for the Elks because of just how young their coaching staff is and how much confidence that upper management has in such a young coaching staff.
Yeah, no, it's exciting to see, kind of where they where they go, and especially with a lot of these young coaches. I know Graham. I think he was on the Oregon State coaching staff in some capacity when I was there. But yeah, just a lot of just kind of figuring out kind of how to do this at a pretty high level. With college players, and hopefully they kind of grow into kind of what kind of coaches they want to be, because I know they're all from that Pat Casey tree. So
yeah,
it's not the worst tree to come from.
Not at all.
Alrighty. Well, Noah, hey, that's all the time I got for you, man. Really appreciate you coming on. Do you want to give a quick plug on the Elks? They start their series again tonight against Cowlitz. Do you want to let our listeners know where to tune in?
Absolutely. So first of all, if I'm giving the opportunity to give a plug, I want to say that the Elks are still and always looking for host families for the 2021 season. So if you have an extra room in your house and you wouldn't mind a college baseball player sleeping there for, the next month or two till mid-August about, especially if you're a baseball fan and you want to see some great baseball this summer, I believe you get free season tickets as well as some other benefits as a host family. So the Elks are always looking for host families. Host families are the lifeblood of our organization. And we really can't have a successful season without our amazing team of host families. So if you want to be a part of that team, reach out to the Elks, bendelks.com. And yeah, absolutely. We always are looking for host families. And then, the Elks are in town this coming week, Tuesday through Thursday, against the Cowlitz Black Bears, 6:35 first pitch on all three of those nights. And tonight, Tuesday, is $2 Tuesday, $2 admission, $2 hot dogs, some other $2 deals at the concession stand. So there's not a more affordable night in baseball than Tuesday night at Vince Guenna Stadium. So make sure to get out there tonight or other times this week. Hope to see you guys out there. If you can't make it in, Facebook Live for a video stream, or mixler.com/Bend Elks Baseball for the radio stream. If you have to listen to my voice, then that's where you can do it.
All right. Well, Noah, hey, really appreciate you taking the time. We'll see you at the ballpark. I think we're coming out Wednesday.
All right.
I'll
see you there.
Yeah, see you then. All right. Thanks again, Noah.
Thank you.
Thanks to everyone for joining in on today's episode. We'll be back again next week to talk about the sports world here in Central Oregon. You can find this podcast on Spotify and iTunes, or you can watch the video on YouTube, or you can find us on the Bulletin's website. Thank you again, and we'll be back in soon.